Today I will be graphing international trade and how it affects the demand and the buyer in a domestic country. So here I've already graphed out the domestic and foreign supply curve, as well as a domestic demand curve. So what we have right here in the middle is the original equilibrium point between the domestic demand curve and the domestic supply curve. If we did not have a free market or international trade, that is where equilibrium would be, right here. But since it is open to the world and it is a free market, we're able to see this right here, this supply curve for the world. So what we can see from this graph so far is that from this point right here to this point up here, these trades are still taking place in the domestic country because they're able to produce it cheaper for what the supply of the world or the foreign good is produced for. But when we get to this point right here, that is when we see things change a little bit. We can see that because right here, this section of the supply curve is cheaper than the domestic supply curve. So instead of the consumers purchasing goods from the domestic country that they were living in, they actually turn to the world and the foreign goods because they are getting a better deal and are still willing and able to buy at this price. But if they can get it for a lower price, they would love to have that. The new equilibrium point would be right here. I will draw the producer and consumer surplus. Because we've expanded, or the price has decreased, I should say, the price has decreased from the original equilibrium of just the domestic side. We now have this entire triangle right here that is consumer surplus because they were willing and able to buy, and here they sold, or willing and able to obtain the product for that price, and then made the purchase all the way up into here. Now the producer surplus is actually a lot smaller. The producer's surplus is only here because the consumers are getting such a good price in these areas due to the world. The domestic's producer surplus is limited to just that area. In this, there is no deadweight loss